1 second. Okay, when I call your jurisdiction, if you'll please state your name. San Mateo County,
Dave Pine,
Atherton,
Rick Madolia.
Belmont,
Julia Mates,
Burlingame, East Palo Alto,
Carlos Romero,
Millbrae,
Anderson,
San Bruno,
Marty Medina.
Portola Valley, Director Emeritus,
John Keener.
and Director Emeritus. Okay, we have a quorum.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Okay, I don't see any public comment. If I could get an action to set the agenda and approve the consent items, that would be awesome.
so moved.
Thank you,
Second,
Carlos.
Medina.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay, San Mateo County,
yes,
Atherton,
Yes,
Belmont,
yes,
Burlingame,
yes,
East Palo Alto,
Yes,
Millbrae,
yes,
San Bruno,
Yes,
Portola Valley. And the motion passes.
okay, great. So, welcome everybody to 2023 and our first executive committee meeting. Welcome Anders to joining the executive committee. Really happy to have you here. I don't really have anything else to report.
thank you for having me, everybody.
So the next item on the agenda is the CEO report.
okay. Happy New Year, everyone. Nice to see you all. Hopefully 2023 will be an awesome year for everyone. Hopefully everyone will stay healthy. We'll get over this COVID thing and get life back to normal. So let's go to the first slide. So we have a number of open positions. As you know, we're recruiting for the Director of Power Resources. We will likely be making a decision today on the top 2 candidates that we've been considering. So hopefully that position will be filled shortly. We are also recruiting for a Director of Marketing and Community Relations, as KJ is retiring at the end of February. So that is ongoing. We are also looking for an IT systems and support administrator, and that person will take over what our outside person has been doing and also provide additional support as we go back to in-person meetings. We also will soon be posting a position for human relations manager. The person that we hired as our human relations director, Cora, has accepted another position and will be leaving as of January 25th. So we are rapidly looking to bring on a human relations manager. So if anyone knows of anyone who's great for any of these positions, that would be wonderful. And also we're looking for an administrative assistant. As we get bigger, there's more and more to do. And so we need some help on our administrative side. We will also possibly be posting soon for someone to replace Chelsea. Her last day was December 30th, but we may hold off on that until the new director comes on board and really think through with that person how we want to structure that organization. So it's not, we will be recruiting for someone, but it's not exactly sure what position we're going to be calling it until we engage further with our new Director of Power Resources. Next, please. So there is a lot going on. So our white paper on achieving 24/7 renewable energy by 2025 will be published tomorrow. The press release is coming out tomorrow. I just was on a call with a reporter before this meeting, so we're getting lots of interest in this, and the paper is awesome, as you'll see, and really, really proud of the work that we've been doing here at Peninsula Clean Energy. It's very innovative, very forward-looking, and super high quality, as you will see. In terms of rates, PG&E published new rates on December 29th, and the PCIA is positive, but very small for vintages 2016 and 2022, and negative for vintage 2021. And so at our board meeting on the 26th, we will get into all the details of how that is affecting the rates, but our plan is to be publishing new rates and using new rates effective February 1 based on PG&E's new rates. The solar and storage on public buildings, we are still actively seeking public building sites for cohort 2. As you may recall, the PUC did make a decision on the NEM 3.0. What that's going to be, and so we have 120 days since that decision to get any interconnection applications in to PG&E and to enable those systems to be on NEM 2.0, which is April 15th. So we will be continuing to talk to you, but also trying to move this along for any new systems that might want to be in our second cohort. At the end of this month, we will be bringing to you the PPA and the contract from the developer or the builder, the EPC contractor, to build the systems for cohort 1. We're continuing to meet with each jurisdiction, city manager, the PCE board member, the PCE alternate, and I know there's a lot of changes going on right now in terms of who is going to be on the board. And so we're trying to help update people on what's happening. And we will also be providing updates on training for new board members and even for existing board members. And then also wanted to let you know that our quarterly all staff in-person meeting will be held on January 24th, I believe at our favorite place, which is Allied Arts in Menlo Park. So we're again excited to get the whole team together in January, meet our new members who have joined us since the last time we got together, and just get all energized for this coming year. So that's all. Oh, and one other thing, I don't have it on here, but we're in the process of engaging a financial consultant to be helping us as we reach out to our rating agencies for a relook at the ratings that they have given us, and hopefully to get upgrades on those ratings. So happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Does anybody have a question?
If I might, Rick,
Please, Dave.
Jan, could you talk a little bit more about this cohort 2 for solar and storage? Like, how much capacity are we talking about here? You know, how many? How I don't have a sense for how big an opportunity this is.
We're reaching out to all of the cities and also to the school districts. So we're looking to, put in solar, behind the meter solar or behind the meter solar plus storage for any of those facilities. Peter Levitt and Carlos Moreno are working on that actively on our team here. So if there is a site that you're aware of that might be a good site, please let us know ASAP, and then Carlos and Peter will follow up. We can't promise that these new sites are going to get into the NEM 2.0. The possibility of that is probably very small, but we're trying to do.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you're reaching out to the schools. That can be a tough process. There's 23 school districts, but I'm glad,
Yeah.
I'm glad the outreach is happening there.
Well, we've actually outreached to all of you, to board members, to ask us to help introduce us to the school districts because we don't know them. We know you all well, but we know that you know the school districts. So if there are
Okay.
others that you believe we should be talking to, please let us know because we don't really know those people.
Donna,
Jan, in that vein, do you have a list you can send out of who maybe you are engaged with? I know I've given you names in Burlingame, but I'm not sure if you've contacted them or they've contacted you. Is there like a status list that you could share?
Yes, I'm sure we have that. So we'll
Yeah, just
pull it
maybe
together.
that'd be great. If you could send it out, then I would know who I need to continue to follow up with.
Okay.
That'd be
Super.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could send that to all of us, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
and just so everyone really understands the impact of the April 15th deadline, I don't know if PCE will have trouble satisfying that, but the most significant difference between NEM 2 and NEM 3 is that in general, when you put in solar, you want to put in more electricity generation than you're using so that you can electrify certain methane gas systems that you currently have. So you want overproduction. That overproduction with NEM 2 gets a retail rate and PC pays an extra 1 cent above that, I understand. But NEM 3 will change the payment for that excess generation from retail to wholesale, which cuts about 2/3 of the value out of it. So economically, it's quite advantageous for anyone who can to get into NEM 2. So I encourage you all to, get to those that would be the decision makers for the public agencies so that they can get in front of PCE as fast as possible.
Right. And also, one other thing on the reimbursement rate. So there's two portions of it. There's the distribution, the T&D side of it and the generation side. So we can control the generation side. And up till now, we have been paying the Eco 100 rate for any excess generation. And our plan, I think, is to continue that. But it's the T&D portion of it, which is maybe 60 to 70% of the reimbursement is substantially, will be substantially less under NEM 3.0.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
But we're working on it and we are targeting April 15th, but we gotta get those sites into our group now.
Good. Okay. Rick.
Yeah, question on that. Thanks, Rick. I understand the difference between NEM 2 and NEM 3, and it's true NEM 2 more advantageous economically. But could it be said that under NEM 3, if you add storage and you're able to store any excess energy that you may be able to produce, that you could then use later instead of buying peak energy from PG&E, you're saving money, which is almost the same as getting paid. Is that a different way of looking at this? Because I know one of the things that was discussed during that whole thing at the CPUC was the fact that we need to encourage more storage. So if we can convince our jurisdictions that we're trying to work with here, that they should also have storage, and there are other benefits to that, maybe we'd still be okay with this.
Well, NEM 3 would give the wholesale rate at the time that energy is released from the storage. So obviously you'd want to be storing it during the day and releasing it during the peak hours. You
Right.
would get the wholesale rate for the peak hours rather than the wholesale rate for the off-peak hours, which is a significant difference, but it's still nowhere near as advantageous as NEM 2. I do think that over time, the PUC is going to create more vehicles to encourage storage. I can only say I've looked at it in great detail for myself. And right now, adding storage really you do it in order to cover your power situation in a PSPS event. There's
Right.
not, you can't you don't do it for the economics.
Right.
There's no advantage economically. It's a cost factor. I think that's, as you know, we move off of the pandemic and batteries become more available, there's going to be some cost change, as we saw huge cost changes in solar panels over the last 10 years. But that's a future deal.
Okay, but of course, there is this other angle, which is that environmentally, we're cutting greenhouse gas emissions, and that's another goal. Thank you, Rick.
Okay. Dave.
Yeah, I'm sorry. In order to avail oneself of NEM 2.0, you just have to be installed by, what did you say, April 15th, or what's the trigger?
I think the interconnection application has to be filed.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's no way you can be installed by then, but yeah, we would do an analysis of the site and submit the interconnection application to PG&E before that date.
Got it.
So let me just see if there's any public comment on this matter. I don't see anyone's hand up. Other than Dave, your hand is still up.
Yeah, take that down.
That's okay. Okay, so I think we're moving on. The next item is the reconsideration of the ex officio board seats.
Jan, do you want me to do this, run this?
Yeah, Donna, go ahead, please.
Okay, great. So at the behest of the Board of Directors, we put together a small subcommittee consisting of myself, Rick Benia, Giselle Hill, and John Keener. And we worked with Nellie and our legal counsel to determine a process by which we could proceed or move through transition on the Director Emeritus ex officio board positions. And after pretty extensive discussion with the attorneys and with the team, we came up with a proposal. You know, we considered kind of almost every different option, but we came up with we considered maintaining the status quo. We considered, which is to reelect someone every 2 years, 2 people every 2 years, dissolve the seat altogether. But both of those seemed not really to continue to function, given the large number of graduates that we have from the board who want to remain involved. So we came up with a kind of a combination of ideas, and it's to create basically a Director Emeritus sort of advisory pool, or we didn't want to call it a council because we didn't want people to think it was actually going to be this official meeting thing and confused with the CAC. So we called it a pool, but we are open to renaming, where former directors and their alternates would be able to formally sign up to a maintain list of essentially volunteers, emeritus volunteers that would be willing to serve on subcommittees, volunteer at, say, for example, farmers markets or advocacy events, advise the staff and the Citizens Advisory Committee on topics that were germane to their skill set. So you would sign up. Your specialty, like for my case, it might be finance. Rick Benia, it might be labor relations. You know, different people have different areas of engagement that they're interested in. And Nellie said, and she can chime in here if she'd like, this list wouldn't be hard to maintain. You would only be eligible if once your public office term concluded. So we wouldn't, if you moved off but remained on council, you wouldn't be eligible to sit on this quite yet. But if you leave council and you want to stay engaged, you retire off council for whatever reason, this would be the way we would do it. And as opposed to just the general public, you would receive the newsletters, the agendas. Of course, everybody would be welcome at public meetings, but you don't have to attend all the meetings. And some of the things we sort of specifically called upon were outreach, legislative advocacy, technical assistance, teaching, review of staff work product, or any other means by which the staff or CAC can reasonably deploy their knowledge, enthusiasm, and passion around clean energy and advancing the mission of PCE. So we would dissolve the emeritus seats. There would no longer be voting, they wouldn't have a vote, they wouldn't have an official seat, and they would be more organized like a pool where participation was more voluntary. I want to open it up to Nellie and colleagues on the committee if they want to add anything to that. Rick, I don't know if you're here, you want to add anything? You were on the.
Thank you, I'm here. And
Mhm.
excuse me, your discussion was good. I think that the description you gave was good. I think it's a good way to take advantage of the people who have been active, who are truly invested, I think, in the mission and want to stick around and continue to be able to help. Certainly, I think that describes me. Though I'm not on the council and I'm going to be moving around doing other things now, this is something like I'm here today, and not just for this issue. So I feel as though I can continue to be useful. I see, the idea that there's like an advisory body of a concerned ex-board members shows that the structure of PC is such that we value the input of all of us who have been here and who have really carried the banner, who are really working hard to bring renewable energy and to reduce carbon emissions and to create meaningful programs for the people throughout our communities, right? So that's where I am, and I think this is a great idea. Thank you, Donna, for helping us bring this forward. And Jan, thank you for also working with us to get this to this point. Thank you.
John, I see John has his hand raised. If it's okay, Chair.
Yeah, go, John.
Yeah, first of all, I apologize for no video. My camera is somehow kaput. Yeah, thanks, Donna, for for leading this, and I support her proposal, even though that'll sort of bring my tenure as an emeritus to the end. One thing I would note is, and I'm sure Donna knows this, emeritus members have never been voting members on any committee, but
Right, right.
so that wouldn't change.
Right, they're not voting, John, but they're on our roll call list. So
Yeah.
the issue there was if we just expanded emeritus, all of a sudden Nellie's administrative function and our roll calls
Right.
become massively unmanageable.
Yeah, at any rate, I support this this measure, and look forward to moving on.
Great. Okay, let me just see if Nellie had a comment. You don't need to, Nellie, but okay, no, she doesn't. Julia.
Thank you. I just want to say that I support the recommendation. I want to thank the subcommittee for all their work, and this is a very thoughtful way to have our, our experts continue to help out and to serve the mission. So I appreciate it, and of course, a big gratitude to both of our emerituses for all their work in the past few years. My Latin is poor, sorry.
Right. So I had two things. One, the emeritus position, I think, is actually referenced in our organizational document.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to go to the effort now to remove that. I think we just can choose that we're not going to fill it. And, I think that's the right decision. The other thing, in terms of the engagement of the emeritus members and alternates who are in the pool, I want to make sure that they can serve on subcommittees.
That's right.
So that wasn't explicitly stated in the memo, but I think it's really important that they be able to serve on subcommittees.
Yes, and that was 100%. Oh, okay, yes, yes, that's absolutely, and I'm sorry, that might have been an oversight on my part, but yes, the intention
that's okay.
was, that when we listed all the different things, could be called upon to assist in outreach, legislative advocacy, technical assistance, that was the caveat of the specificity around the type of work we would do, and to me, those would cover, anything that was like a subcommittee where they wanted to sit on one, but you're right, expressly pointing that out in a revised memo to the full board would be appropriate.
Great. Okay, Dave.
I think this makes a lot of sense. I think the onus will be on staff and the remaining board members to make sure we really avail ourselves of this incredible talent we have. I mean, so many things come up where you can immediately think of former board members that would just be such a huge value add. So we'll just have to get in the pattern of keeping that in our thought process. And then just Rick, just a technical nit, why not amend the agreement? We don't have to go back to the cities, we can just amend it at the board meeting and take out 3.1.1.
No, I think if it's in the agreement, for it to be amended, it has to go back to the cities.
I think there's certain levels of things that don't have to. Like, I'm not
Well,
sure.
let-
I don't think this one, for example, ever went to the cities. But I agree with you. If it requires going to the cities, no bother. But
Right, that's my only point. If it does, yeah, legal counsel can give us advice on that, but if it doesn't need to go to the cities, sure, I'm fine to take it out. I just didn't want to go through the
I see.
administrative process of going to the cities.
Okay, Jen can check on that.
This is Jen. I can go ahead and look at that. I'm not sure if the emeritus sections do need to go back to the cities, but I can circle up.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jen.
And then Rick, on that, maybe we leave it 3.1.1 directors emeritus, but we leave the title the same, but we revise the paragraph to specify the I had a better word than pool, but
Emeritus advisory.
yeah, just emeritus advisory.
How about
Go ahead.
you could call it the talent bank?
It's exactly what it is. It's the Talent and Enthusiasm Bank. But yeah, we'll come up with a name and then we can specifically add in there the subcommittee, Rick. So maybe in the memo going to the board, we could actually write the revised language if it's acceptable. So we could do everything at once.
Yeah, that's good. If we don't need to go out to the cities to amend the agreement, I think that's great. I agree with you that we should just change the section to reference what we're going to be doing going forward.
Okay, great.
Okay, let me just make sure there's no public comment on this. I don't see anyone with a hand up, so let's move on. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, which is the DEAI impacts on the strategic plan and policies 9 and 10.
And this will be presented by Shana.
Thanks, Jan. Great, so I'm happy to present this agenda item to you all today. I'll move on to our next slide. For the agenda, I'll start off with some background about how this fits into our DEAI scope of work. And then I'll go into proposed edits to the strategic plan, proposed edits to policy number 9, and proposed edits to policy number 10. I'll plan to take all comments and questions at the end of my presentation, as opposed to between strategic plan, policy 9, and policy number 10, just for the sake of time.
Great.
All right, so here's the DEAI scope of work. The original DEAI scope of work for our consultant had 5 main tasks. We've completed the first 3 of them. In progress right now is update relevant organizational policies, which is what I'm coming to you guys today with, and also the DEAI action plan, which we will come to the DEAI subcommittee in mid-February with, and ultimately the board with in mid-March. But for updating relevant organizational policies, we asked our consultant to propose edits to the strategic plan, employee handbook, and policies number 9 and 10. We are not bringing the employee handbook to you all today. That will be brought to the board at a later date, but we do plan on updating that one as well. So these edits that I'm going to go over the next few slides were both either proposed by our consultant or Peninsula Clean Energy staff made a lot of the edits to policy number 10, for example. So
Sorry.
right along. No worries.
Of course, it's my husband.
Great. So proposed edits to the strategic plan. As you all are aware, we have 6 pillars to our strategic plan: organizational excellence, financial stewardship, marketing, outreach, and account services, community energy programs, public policy, and power resources. Our consultant is proposed edits to the organizational excellence pillar of the strategic plan. So currently that pillar reads, ensure organizational excellence by adhering to sustainable business practices and fostering a workplace culture of innovation, diversity, transparency, and integrity. The proposed change, which I have highlighted in red, is to ensure organizational excellence by adhering to sustainable business practices and fostering a workplace culture of innovation, diversity, equity, accessibility, inclusion, transparency, and integrity. And so we are coming to the executive committee and ultimately to the board with this edit to it's the overarching goal for organizational excellence. We anticipate making more updates to the strategic plan at the key tactic level, which will be done at staff's discretion during implementation of the DEA action plan. We don't currently seek executive committee or board approval for all of the minor updates we make to the strategic plan. So I just wanted to kind of put that in the framework for you all to consider that we're seeking for the overarching goal, but there will be some tactics that we will plan to update at staff's discretion later on. All right, moving right along to proposed edits to policy number 9. The policy was originally approved in November of 2016. The current title is Ethical Vendor Standards. Proposed new title is Ethical Procurement Standards. The full red line and clean versions of the policy are included in your packet for today. The focus of the policy has broadened to include staff's procurement conduct, not purely focusing on our vendors' conduct, but that's still a portion of the policy. We borrowed from San Mateo County's Code of Ethical Conduct, Procurement Ethics, when adding these additions to the policy. It was previously a 2-sentence policy on vendor standards, which is currently section 1 of the policy, Ethical Vendor Standards. It was just 2 sentences, and that was the extent of the policy. So the proposed revised policy has the additions of the following sections: sustainability and social responsibility, transparency, confidentiality, impartiality, professionalism, compliance, and accountability. So those are the main edits that, and we built out each of those sections a little bit more in the full red line that we provided to you all. All right, moving right along to proposed edits to policy number 10. Policy number 10 is our inclusive and sustainable workforce policy. It was originally approved in December of 2016 and updated in October of 2018. Getting into the edits, we updated the formatting of the policy by adding numbered section headers for easier policy navigation, since it is quite a long policy. We also reformatted the policy statement under section 1 of the policy, primarily restructuring language that was already included in the original policy, but also includes the proposed revised organizational excellence goal from the strategic plan, which I mentioned earlier in my presentation, and reference to the recently approved policy 22, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and how both of these policies relate to upholding our organizational excellence pillar of the strategic plan. We then made several revisions to the section 2B supply chain. We revised item 4 in section 2B supply chain to request information from suppliers and contractors of their status as a minority, women, LGBT, disabled veteran, or persons with disabilities owned business enterprise, rather than collecting information on inclusivity of their workforce, which is now addressed in item 6 of this section. We revised item 6 in section 2B to encourage, not require, reporting from developers and large vendors on inclusivity and business staff. And we removed the reference to business ownership from this item, as that is now addressed in the proposed edits to item 4 in this section. And this this revised item 6 just reflects more of our current policy. We don't currently require our large developers to report their on the diversity of their staff, but that is something we may consider in the future. But we wanted to soften that language a little bit here to kind of go along with our current practice. And then one of the more robust edits is we added item 7, supply chain code of conduct, and added a new attachment to this policy, supply chain code of conduct, and that is now referenced in this section. And on the next slide, I will take a little detour and give you guys an overview of attachment A, supply chain code of conduct. So this attachment, the standards of which were derived from the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the core conventions of the International Labor Organization, ILO, including the ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, the Solar Energy Industries Association Solar Industry Commitment to Environmental and Social Responsibility, and the Responsible Business Alliance Code of Conduct. We added these 8 sections to this supply chain code of conduct, the first of which is freely chosen employment, saying forced, bonded, or indentured labor, involuntary or exploitive prison labor, slavery, or trafficking of persons is not permitted in our supply chain. For young workers, we also say that child labor is not permitted in any stage of manufacturing for our supply chain. For working hours, we have a set maximum working hours per week and require at least 1 day off per week. Wages and benefits, compensation paid to workers shall comply with all applicable wage laws, and there shall be overtime compensation at a higher rate for overtime hours worked. Humane treatment, there shall be no harsh or inhumane treatment, including violence, abuse, punishment, coercion, bullying, public shaming. Non-discrimination and non-harassment, suppliers should be committed to a workplace free of harassment and unlawful discrimination. Freedom of association, suppliers shall respect the rights of all workers to form and join trade unions of their own choosing. And restricted jurisdictions, suppliers shall not manufacture or produce products in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, because it is believed that if products created in that region are likely were done using forced labor. So we will not buy products from that region. All right, getting back to proposed edits to policy number 10. We added the City of Los Banos in section 2C, inclusive business practices, previously just referenced San Mateo County, but since we expanded service to City of Los Banos, we updated that section. We also added the City of Los Banos, Merced County, and the Central Valley when defining local in section 3B, sustainable workforce objectives. We modified this language in the second to last section in section 3D, Peninsula Clean Energy owned generation projects from shall require to shall use best efforts to require. We modified the 20% apprenticeship enrollment requirement to 25% in section 3D, Peninsula Clean Energy owned generation projects, to better comport with the Inflation Reduction Act requirements to receive full tax credits for projects that we will end up owning. Moving right along, we removed the entire section and paragraph on PCE feed and tariff price projects. It is my understanding we will not partake in those types of projects. We decided to remove that from the policy. We renamed section 3E to Peninsula Clean Energy Programs from PCE Energy Efficiency Projects and updated the rest of the section to reference energy programs as opposed to energy efficiency projects. And then we removed the language, including proper assignment of work to crafts that traditionally perform the work, from section 3E, Peninsula Clean Energy Programs. And that rounds out the edits for policy number 10. And I will go back to our recommendation as we're looking for recommending executive committee to recommend approval to the board of directors of diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion related amendments to the strategic plan and policy number 9 and 10. And I welcome any comments or questions. Thank you. I think you're muted, Rick.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you for your presentation. And I want to say that I'm always in favor of going through and examining where we are and making things current and making things as we state them more, I think, clear and, being with the moment, especially. I want to thank you and everybody else who worked and took part in making sure that PCE, I think, is really on the cutting edge right now. Diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. In fact, I've actually recommended our work to other organizations that I'm talking to right now to have a look at this, because they're struggling with, what do we do? And I'm like, okay, we've already done a really huge job on this. And so anyway, thank you all. I really want to talk today about a couple of things, though, that I noticed when I was looking through this last night, because as you know, as soon as policy 10 is mentioned, my antennas tick up and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And in looking at, and in terms of, the last 3 pages, basically of policy 10, as it has been, were the most important part to the building trades in terms of projects and the work that happens on projects. And the policy came about because the building trades, which actually started taking part in the formation of PCE back in, I believe it was 2015, when the steering committee was created to do the work, the legwork, and create the foundation that PCE eventually, was created and rose upon. So I'm looking, though, and with that in mind, when the labor policy was created, it was a result of discussions with the building trades and the IBW being part of that, but it was the building trades. And now as we look at some of these things and we seek to make some changes, I know that I spoke with representative from the electricians, who I think is on here and probably will have some comments also. But I didn't have a chance to, and I don't think, and I didn't hear from the building trades representative. And what I feel like, and I see 3 different items here that are of concern, and I'll mention those in a minute. Well, maybe I should mention them now to just put a punctuation mark on the importance of this. For instance, in section 3D, where it says PCE owned generation project, that's, the heading. In the second to last sentence there, you change the word shall require to shall use best efforts to require. Now, we don't really know the thinking behind that. We don't know why, but what we do know is that we had negotiated with PCE a policy that this is what it said. And the implications of changing to shall use best efforts can be huge and can affect the livelihood for thousands of working people. So that's one thing. Section 3E, which is PCE energy programs, the suggestion is to remove completely the last sentence, including, which is including proper assignment of work to crafts that traditionally perform the work. So in labor parlance, that's called jurisdiction, and it's huge. It's a huge issue between trades, who's going to do the work, right? And then there's one more thing where I see that, as you mentioned, I read it last night, to be in line with requirements of the IRA, you would change the apprenticeship requirement to 25% from 20%. The only issue with that is, and I think the building trades are looking at the IRA, because building trades are the big apprenticeable, that's where apprentices actually, have huge training programs for them, the different trades do. So the ratio, this is described as the ratio of apprentices to journeymen, is typically 5 to 1. It is with the carpenters, it is with the electricians, that's 20%. The IRA might be calling for 25%, but these are collectively bargained agreements with employers. And so there are implications that go beyond. So all I'm saying is, I think that since negotiation is what led us to even have this policy, when we have these questions and we're seeking to make some changes here, they could be great improvements, I don't know, but still, there should be some discussion with labor about it.
Great, thank you for,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all. I'm just saying, I think there should be a meeting with labor, with the building trades, to go over this and just make sure that, the building trades might say, this is beautiful. Okay. But we, because it affects so many thousands of working people, right? And because of the way it was created and the importance of it, I would like to suggest that we go ahead and schedule some kind of a discussion with the building trades to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Is it okay if I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Rick, you may be muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. Next public comment is from Dave Morrow.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year's. I'm Dave Morrow and I represent IBEW, which is electricians. Yeah, I received this last Friday, the agenda. And like Rick's concerns with all, I can't speak for the building trades, but I can speak for the electricians, that it would be nice when we do workforce policy changes that do affect, a lot of our workers, both electricians and all throughout the building trades, that there is some kind of a talk that goes on between us. So we're just not unilaterally changing workforce policy without the workforce being involved. That's kind of, it's probably, I'm sure it's just an oversight. And I know you guys are very busy, want to get things done, but I think it would be a wise move to facilitate a meeting with the building trades. And I'd be more than happy to round up the building trades business manager, myself, and maybe the plumbing business manager, so we can discuss this to see if these are going to affect us or not. Because we said we just got these on Friday, and to do our full due diligence, it's going to take us a little bit of time. And I wanted to make sure that the building trades were informed of this. I don't even know if the building trades are aware of these changes. So I'm going to make them aware of it now. And I was wondering if it's okay with the board, with the executive committee, that we maybe look past these couple things for right now and schedule a meeting, and we can get these things ironed out. And maybe, who knows, maybe give you some better language. You never know. That could help you out. So that's really all I have to say. And thank you so much for your time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Rick, could I ask a question for a moment?
Please.
This is Dave. Dave, who was it that you suggested that we meet with?
I suggest that we meet with the building trades business manager, which is Bart Bendajo. He runs the building trades now. He took James Rio Gomez's position. And I'd be more than happy to sit in there with him, and probably more than likely Mark Burry from the UA, the plumbers. And I could get
I'm sorry, Mark.
Mark Burry.
Burry of the Plumbers Union. Okay.
He's a Burlingame guy, Jan, and a good friend of mine. So I can get you in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the feedback for sure. Any executive committee feedback on any that I discussed?
Any other questions or comments from anyone on the executive committee? Donna.
Thank you. Well, first of all, just to Shayna, as always, amazing work and really impressive. And I think what this shows is we had a really good start, but we can do a lot better. And this draft is a lot better, a big ways toward a more comprehensive and, specific kind of policy that I think allows us to have a more clear view in the world into what we're doing, and for us to sort of set more clearly to the world what we need when you're bidding on our contracts. Nellie, the next piece of this, if I'm correct, will be because this is great, but then there's enforcement and how do we actually comply and ensure compliance? Can you talk about that quickly?
Yeah, ensuring compliance with these policies. So part of that is implementation during our solicitation processes, and that's asking questions during the solicitation process and building that kind of into our RFP and RFO templates. So that is one piece. And then just the supply chain code of conduct, I believe we're contemplating adding that to our PPA as well. So kind of just baking those into our templates and our processes. And so right now we have like several workforce questions that we ask during our RFOs, and we ask people to submit statements on how they comply with this policy. And so that would probably be similar in the future as well. So basically providing proposers and bidders with a link to this, and then also asking them how they comply, kind of as a self-statement. That's my understanding. Jan and Sean, please add if you have anything to add there. And I'm open to other ways of other ideas as well.
And that seems like a really good, a good process, and I think staff can manage this. So, and we can, address that as it comes up with the actual implementation plan, which is where it'll codify all this, I'm guessing. And then my only other real comment is, and I can appreciate both Dave and Rick's comments, but not every business we probably do business with will necessarily be unionized. There might be some women, minority, LGBTQ, whatever other businesses, smaller businesses, they may not all be unionized. So I just want to make sure that we get the perspective, but we balance it with the actual pragmatic and realities of implementation in terms of sourcing the businesses, so that we're not inadvertently excluding businesses that might meet some of our other objectives just because they're not unionized. And Rick, I'm sure you guys can be sensitive to that and helpful when we put that all together.
So could I add something? Yeah. Of course, building trades, all unions have always been open. Well, not always. I guess there are some examples in the past of not completely being open, but we do make a point now and for years have. For instance, the Carpenters Union has been reaching out and getting as many women as possible into the union for at least the last 20 years that I know of. And we do have LGBTQ, and we're full of immigrants, and we certainly respect and welcome all. So, and I can only speak for the Carpenters, but I think the other ones, have their own ways, but I think in general, that's just the way we are. So I hear your concerns and your thoughts, and this is part of exactly what we're talking about, is making sure everybody is represented and has an opportunity. So also, I wanted to ask about one thing where, for you, Shana, where as you were going through the slides, one of the items at the end of a long list was freedom of association. And then you described it, and what it boiled down to was the right to organize, that employers should respect the right to organize. So I wonder though, why don't we, instead of saying freedom of association, call it what it is? It's the right to organize. That's all. That's my comment on that. Thank you.
Great. And they are, so regarding the edits that Rick and Dave commented on in the latter part of the policy, those are just proposed edits. So if the executive committee feels like they do not want to take those edits based off of comments, we can go back to the drawing board and not take those edits. So whatever direction the executive committee would like to direct staff, whether it's to meet with labor regarding these edits or to reject the edits or whatnot, staff is open to that. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out there. If we have problems with the language, and we can opt not to change the language.
Okay. So I'll take the public comment from Dave Morrow, then I and Carlos have comments. Go ahead, Dave. Your hands up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I could only speak for the IBEW in San Mateo County, but mostly through the IBEW nationally. We have probably led the building trades in diversity, inclusion for probably the last 50 years. I know in San Mateo County, our female workforce makes up about 10% of our apprenticeship now. In the apprenticeship, we're probably running about 50% minorities. We have 10% African Americans. We have 10%, these are round numbers, 10% Pacific Islanders. We do have a very robust, with the building trades through the TIP program, reaching out to underserved communities. And that's where we are focusing our recruitment from, is from these areas. Our LGBTQ Hugh community in the IBW. I know I mean, because there's a lot of times it's not out there in the open, but we probably have maybe 5% in our local alone. And it's pretty, and it fluctuates throughout the United States, depending upon where you're at. So, I mean, the IBW has been, as far as I'm concerned, way ahead of the curve for, and you know, diversity and inclusivity for quite some time. And it has been the directive from our international president to keep that up. And we also have a group called the Renew Group. We have a minority caucus group, and these are nationally recognized in the IBW organizations within the organizations. So, you know, we are all for the inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. And I think by meeting with us, we can come to help you guys out with this, with your goal of having more divert for your policy. The D, I get the letters mixed up. DECI, DEACI policy. So I mean, we look forward to working with you and really making this an effective policy for everyone. You know, of course, you know, and we have plenty of these minority, we'll call it for a better term, minorities that are becoming contractors. And in fact, I have an email just right now from a female who wants to start her own business. Right now, just 10:52, I just received an email about one of our members who wants to start a business. So I'll be talking with her, you know, over the next couple of months to get that. It's not that easy to get her going. So, I mean, it's happening right now as we speak. So just wanted to throw that in there so everybody has a fair idea of where the IBW stands on all this. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So this is an action item that we're going to vote on once we've completed comments. I think that the suggested changes to the strategic plan and to policy 9 are very non-controversial. There are 3 issues in policy 10 that I think it would be helpful to Shana, you or whoever to comment on why those changes were made.
Okay.
And the first one is the one that you had mentioned, which is in the supply chain, the change from getting information on suppliers and contractors, members of their workforces versus business owners. The change is to get that information from business owners. So we'll know the ownership of the firms that we're engaging with. And like you said, we may get that information on their workforce in the future, but that's a change. The second change is that I'm identifying is the one that Rick referenced, which is in item D, 3D, I think it is, on owned generation projects. Right now, it states that for every renewable project, PCE will require its regular workforce to be at least 50% journey level employees from an apprenticeship program. And the changes to, instead of say shall use best efforts to require that, which is the same language as we had in item E, which will use best efforts to support local businesses, labor unions, and local apprenticeship programs. So that's the second change that seems like you should comment on. And then the third change is the final language in E, which is deleting the parenthetical clause that including proper assignment of work to crafts that traditionally perform that work.
Great. I'll take a crack at this. So regarding the first change in section 2B supply chain. So previously, item 4 said collect information from suppliers and contractors on the inclusivity, sorry, I have trouble with that word, of their workforce. So we did opt to change that to business ownership. And the primary reason that we did that is regarding our CPUC mandated reporting on supplier diversity that we have to do every year. Those are the categories that we have to look through our payment data every year and figure out if it's paid to a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business, LGBTQ, persons with disabilities, or disabled veteran-owned business. So that's why we made that change to that bullet point. And so it was also a little bit redundant. So previously, we had both item 4 where it said collect information from suppliers and contractors on the inclusivity of their workforce, and then item 6 said require reporting from developers and large vendors on inclusivity and business ownership and staff. So there was an overlap of collecting and requiring reporting on inclusivity and staff, which we haven't been doing in practice. And so we opted to change item 4 to focus on business ownership on those CPUC required mandated reporting section categories, and then item 6 to encourage reporting from developers and large vendors on. We took out business ownership from that item and focused it just on staff, since we were focusing on business ownership in item 4 of that section, and changed require to encourage, because that's not currently a practice that we do, but may consider doing in the future. Does that answer your first question, Rick? All
Yeah,
right.
no, that's good. I'm just asking for fill-in so that everyone understands.
Great. So it's a little bit of adding in the regulatory requirement and then also reducing redundancy in those two sections to make it a little bit more clear.
Great.
And then in regards to section 3D owned generation projects, the 20 to 25% was based off of IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act requirements that I read regarding 1 in 4 workforce of workforces greater than 4 working on these projects would work to be eligible for the full tax credit would be enrolled in a union apprenticeship. But I would be interested potentially in meeting, as Rick said, if that standard isn't something that our labor groups typically go ahead with, and then softening from shall to shall use best efforts. That was a decision of Sean, Jan, and I. Maybe we could discuss a little bit more about why that happened. But my understanding was it just may not be applicable for all of our own generation projects, specifically our smaller ones, like our distributed generation projects, to require that of our workforce. Yeah. And then regarding that last change, that was just we took it out to just be a little bit more succinct in that section. I'm not sure if Sean and Jan had any additions there, but open to feedback.
Jan, do you have any comment? I can add a bit of color if needed.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean, and I'll fill in if there's more to be said.
Great. So what we had in mind here too, in trying to really thread the needle in a way that complied with the IRA and allowed us to move forward, was really thinking through our GovPV program and making sure that we can get the work done expeditiously while still, complying with our values and policies around our workforce and labor agreements, and then increasing that minimum 25% so that we are able to use the direct pay approach for the IRA. So we'll note that we shied away from making very many changes here. We tried to be very minimalistic, but we were thinking through the government PV and how to really be able to proceed with that without any kind of hiccups.
Okay. Okay, Carlos, did you have a comment?
I was gonna comment on the union exclusivity piece, but perhaps if staff is gonna meet with folks, they can come back with us on that. I do think that there are many small businesses that are not signatories to the union the various unions and union contracts around or union agreements in the county, and to the extent that we want those smaller women of color, women, people of color, small businesses to thrive and, you know, eventually get to the place where they indeed can have larger workforces, and it really does, you know, behoove them to kind of to move to the next level, to get into the union. I mean, I do want to understand a little better that implication on small businesses, and I'll give you two quick examples. We had a lot of flooding on the 1st and the 2nd, was at the 31st and the 1st. And, you know, we used a general engineering contractor who was immediately available, who was non-union. And we used a plumbing contractor who was non-union, immediately available. And they were local. They were not members of the union. And, you know, they were certainly what we were charged was, you know, it seemed to be prevailing wage. I think unions serve a very, very important and strong purpose. They certainly bid up the wages in a major way. I'm glad that we live in a Bay Area where indeed we have a strong union movement, but I do want to understand the implications better for small businesses, and particularly for kind of incipient small businesses that may not be members of or signatories to the union contract. So this is not an anti-union statement. It is a statement trying to understand better what that means for our small businesses, particularly minority and women's-owned small businesses who indeed want to try to get a leg up in this solar energy movement. So it's my only comment.
Great. Okay, Dave?
Yeah, just maybe a question for Sean, or, you know, where does this policy currently apply? I mean, this 3D talks about PCE-owned renewable development projects. And does that encompass the government's PV program? Is that considered a own renewable development project? Is that?
I can respond to that. For up till now, we have not owned any projects, but the Gov PV program, because the IRA offers this ability to use the direct pay provision where we can utilize the 30% investment tax credit directly and not have to go through serious machinations to bring in tax equity partners and all that. It behooves us to go ahead and go for the direct pay. So for those projects, we are planning to own those projects. And I think we've brought that to the board and we've explained that to you. And we expect the same for our second cohort, that again, PCE would own those projects. So this is kind of a change from before because we hadn't ever owned any projects.
I see.
So this is, these are smaller ones. It just so happens that for this first cohort of programs, the contractor that we're recommending that we use to build this first cohort is in fact a union contractor, but we would not want to be restricted in the future if we have a lot more projects to do and we need more than one contractor, that we're able to contract with perhaps multiple contractors to try to have some diversity in the makeup of those contractors. So, we're suggesting here that we would use best efforts rather than require it, so that we have the ability to receive bids from multiple contractors. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have read it. I don't read 3D as saying that now. I read 3D, the first 2 or 3 sentences are very, very definitive, saying that we will use labor on these projects. And then this sentence I thought was just kind of a clarification of the type of labor. So if it's your intent that this whole thing is supposed to be best efforts, I don't think it says that currently.
Yeah.
The first sentence is very clear. It says that PCE will develop project, will use local business union labor. So, so I'm not sure, if the whole thing is supposed to be best efforts, it doesn't say that currently.
Okay, so maybe in that first sentence, then we should be saying shall use best efforts to use local
yeah,
businesses.
Yeah,
union
that's,
labor.
yeah, that's where it'd have to go.
Okay,
Yeah, just
Okay,
to,
that's a good
just to back
suggestion.
that up, I think that, the fact is, we've had best efforts language in the kind of deals that we've actually done, not ones that we own. And that's referenced in the Peninsula Clean Energy Programs in item E, which uses the best efforts language. That has not been an inhibitor for us. We have used union labor every single opportunity when they've been available, and we should continue to do that. So I don't have any problem conforming D by adding best efforts both in the first sentence and where it's suggested. But I do think we should drop back in the including proper assignment of the work to the crafts who traditionally perform that work. I don't think that inhibits us. It shows an intent on our part.
I agree.
And I'm sure every single opportunity that we have to do that, we would do that. And I think we should communicate that. Donna?
Okay. Thank you. Well, I really want to, I just want to thank Carlos for his comments, and also, I haven't seen any other hands raised. And while I appreciate it, and I think we should check in with labor on this, I do think staff has worked really, really hard on this and has come up with a very balanced and as stated, inclusive that process and policy that works with both the state and any other federal procurement laws that we're, and the CPUC laws that we have to comply with. So if it's possible, I'd like to make a motion to approve the policy with both Supervisor Pine and Chair DeGolia's comments included, those minor changes, with the recommendation that you check in with the Labor Council and the unions, show them what you've produced, especially around policy 10, share that with them. Because I think I want to advance this because there's so many important elements of this with regard to, procuring China, child labor, all the other things that are so critical. I really want to get that done. And then we can circle back and we can always make improvements on the labor section as needed, because I just know how long it takes to get to meet with people, how long it takes to get things back, and then another meeting with us. It could be 3 or 4 months. So I'd like to get the general policy approved, if that's okay. And I'd like to make a motion to approve it with those caveats.
Donna, can I just get clarification on that? So your two changes are in 3D, in the first sentence to add shall use best efforts to use local businesses in that first sentence. And then the second change was in 3E to include the clause, including proper assignment of work to crafts that traditionally perform the work. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
I believe those were the two statements that Chair DeGolia and Supervisor Pine recommended.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just to clarify, sorry, there's actually a second sentence there in that paragraph. So if what they're asking for is consistency, it would run throughout 3D.
Okay,
Correct.
that's fine.
Mr. Chair, I have a hand up.
Carlos?
Yeah,
And then I'll take public comment at the very end.
Yeah, I was just going to say that to the extent that we as PCE and staff control the hiring on, the particular projects we were talking about, it certainly does behoove us to find those applicable and available union contractors. I mean, I think that it's certainly a little more, it may be more difficult when we have third parties that we're procuring our energy through and signing PPAs over the long term for this new production. So I think that, I mean, there are situations where we are just going to be in control of who we hire. And I think that it is incumbent upon us as a board as well as a staff to attempt as much as possible to use union contractors. And so, but again, I think completely foreclosing the ability of having some minor flexibility to use non-union contractors, particularly when in minority-owned disadvantaged businesses, might not be completely in the interests of pursuing equity. Thank you.
Okay, Dave?
I think you're muted,
muted,
Director
Dave.
Pine.
You know, thinking back to when we put this together originally, you know, I think this paragraph was intended to cover a situation where PCE went out and built a solar farm, or, you know, PCE went out and installed wind turbines. I don't think it was really envisioned for the, you know, for the kind of government program that I guess we're talking about now. So I don't know if there's some way we could distinguish between those sort of things. And I don't know, Donnie, you know, what we could do is we could approve it and just leave the labor language as it is, and just let and have that meeting and then come back with the labor language separately. That's another way we could do it.
I would ask staff maybe what if they're, it's really all the staff who are gonna have to implement that. And I'm fine with that if that's what staff wants to do.
Yeah.
But I also, you know, I'm also very sensitive to, as a woman-owned business myself, and, you know, having worked and a lot of minority women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, I do want to make sure that whatever we do right in there, that we maintain an openness to allow for those businesses, especially small ones, whether, as Director Romero points out, they're local. Many of them are local. They're San Mateo based. I mean, I don't want to end up in a situation where a large, you know, Central Valley or, you know, non-San Mateo County, non-Los Banos, huge, big union would usurp a role that possibly a local East Palo Alto minority-owned business could equally, you know, pay prevailing wage, but equally provide. So I want to make sure that that there's access routes for all those businesses to bid and to participate, and you know, and collaborate to do the work we need, because I think that's part of this whole reason that you have a DEAI.
You know, that argument might carry the day. The more I think about it, you know, maybe we should commit to have this revised and bring it back at the next executive committee, if this can wait for 30 days, you know, just to keep the pressure on to get this fixed one way or the other.
Yeah, let me clarify, Dave. So are you suggesting that we approve it now, recommend that staff meet with labor over the next month and bring it back to the next executive committee after that meeting?
I'm kind of thinking that just to, you know, so you don't have to go back to the board twice. Just work through the labor issue in the next 30 days and then approve the thing, approve the whole thing in 30 days from now. You know, just kind of put some pressure in the system to get this thing resolved. If it can wait for 30 days, I don't know if it can. If it can't, then we have to take a different approach.
I'll chime in, and I think that Sean and Jan, I think it can wait, but I'm open to other feedback from staff. Thoughts, Sean or Jan, on the urgency of this?
Yeah, it's up to the committee, but we can wait 30 more days. But either way, if you want to pass it and then we'll talk to labor, or bring it back, And then we'll probably have a similar discussion next month.
And I just wanted to have a clarifying question. So are you proposing that the edits that Chair DeGolia and Director Pine made earlier, which is to update the entirety of section 3D to use shall use best efforts, and then also addition back of the proper assignment of work language to 3E, and then bring that version to labor? Is that what you're proposing? I just want to be clear on what we're moving forward with.
You want to comment, Dave?
Yeah, I think that proposal, as it was just summarized, we should sit down, and I don't think we should vote on that today. I think we should sit down and talk to labor about it, but I think that proposal should be discussed. But it as described.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the most important thing is that we have a meeting with labor before the board finally approves this, because that makes it more inclusive. We've been very involved with them up to now, and we should be very involved with them going forward. I think showing them the revised language, that's what's being proposed. We don't have to vote on it, but I think that can be taken to them.
Right.
And it doesn't change any of our policy. Other than the issue about focusing on business ownership versus the workforce. And if they have a comment on that, that'll be important to us. So I feel comfortable with that. That means this would not be an action item. And if anyone thinks we should continue it as an action item today, rather than just direction, please speak up.
And there are two other items, so the strategic plan and policy 9. If the executive committee is okay with those, I would be happy to take those to the board this month if those are deemed. I get the blessing on those.
I just think it gets confusing to bifurcate it and take it, in pieces. I think we just put the whole thing off.
Yeah, I agree with that. Donna?
Sorry, and I know we haven't heard from Anders or Julia, and Jeff, so I don't know if they have comments before I make an amendment on my motion.
I'm definitely, I agree. It's probably worth it to talk to labor before this goes to the board. I don't want to go through the work of going to the board twice with it. So I would suggest, I'm fine with tabling policy 10. Policy 9, I guess it feels simpler to me to sort of do all of it at once. But if you prefer to move policy 9 and the strategic plan forward, I was comfortable with those two. And it sounds like the consensus, we were all comfortable with those two. It was just policy 10 we wanted to run by labor first. But if it's easier to just keep the whole thing as one item, I'm fine with that too, unless there's some urgency to 9 or the strategic plan.
Okay, thanks. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Julia.
No, I was going to just say my only comment was it's slightly evolved after listening to the discussion, but I'm fine with holding off on moving forward anything before we go to labor. I would just say I want to recognize how much work has gone into this already, how long this has taken, and I am also a little bit nervous about dragging it out any further. So I think the 30-day is probably a good one, and just to try to really stick to that and get our partners in labor and things to recognize that we're trying to get this done in that time frame.
And for me, I think I'll be okay to get that done in the next 30 days for both item 9 and 10. It would be interesting to see, if at all possible, some statistics as to, in terms of minority-owned and women-owned businesses and how much they have been given those opportunities in the past. Be interesting statistics to see as well, as we discuss our commitment to the DE&I.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the board want to make a comment? Dave, your hand is still up.
I'm down.
Okay, Donna?
Okay. Great feedback. Thank you all. I'll go ahead and make an amendment I think we're getting at the same objective. It was more, I was thinking just approve it all and then we can go back and talk to labor. But I'm happy to wait for 30 days and put this on the next meeting. So long as, again, our labor partners and labor understands that we're trying to, there's another large component to this that we want to get done. So I would say I'd give it 30 days. Shayna, hopefully you guys can work on that timeline. So maybe setting up the meetings sooner rather than later, and then come back to us with, the collaborated policy that, hear what they say, and then what the staff thinks needs to happen, and then put it in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, what I'm trying to say here is I need staff needs to be a filter here, and they need to insert themselves. They need to be involved, and that, we'll hear everybody's points, but we'll take what works well for the staff. We'll take what is feasible and what works well. And Jan, I think you're going to have to be really involved in that to make sure that whatever we adopt is practical, implementable, monitoringable, manageable, and that it will work. And if we can do that, I'll be happy to defer my motion for another 30 days or continue the item, or make a motion to continue the item if we need that.
Second. If we need
Mr. Chair, public comment?
Just hang on a second. So, I mean, we can take a vote on this to continue it, but I don't think that's necessary. I think that we've given direction to staff on
Okay.
both changing the language and meeting with labor and bringing it back in 30 days.
That's
Okay.
fine. That's
Okay.
fine. We don't need I didn't know if we needed a motion or not, but I'll pull my motion off of the floor, and we'll wait until 30 days and get the feedback and incorporate it in policy 10. But can we just state then the other policies look good so the staff knows what to
Yeah.
focus on? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be open to take, unless you want them all presented as a package like I did previously, I'd be open to splitting it, but whatever you guys feel is best. Policy 9 and strategic plan could go to the board this month if you're comfortable with it, but I'm open to whatever.
Personally, I'd rather keep it all together and do it once.
Okay.
I think that to single out policy 10 and have it go through this extra process puts a level of focus on it that is not necessary. I'd
Okay.
rather have it all come at once.
Agreed.
Great.
Okay,
Can do.
so let's take public comment. Rick and then Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want, thank you all for the discussion, actually. I think we ended up at a good place, and I appreciate that. Regarding the use of apprentices and the discussion that was held around what is important and has been known, and many efforts have been made to deal with it for a long time, which is creating opportunities for small, minority, woman-owned, veteran-owned, all sorts of these types of businesses that in the past, many public bidding entities created bidding preferences for these types of businesses because they needed to have a leg up. I believe that has gone away for lots of different reasons, but it's important. The only thing I would caution about, two things. When it comes to apprentices, number one, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the apprenticeship ratio in hiring for contractors is in the collective bargaining agreement. And in order to change that, there has to be a change to each union's collective bargaining agreement with their employers. One thing. The other thing is, one of the things about the small businesses that Donna and Carlos were talking about is that they're not really party to any sort of a state accredited apprenticeship training program. And we need apprenticeship training. We have, an issue right now with lots of people my age aging out, and we have people coming in, but they're not all coming into the trades where we have the state accredited training programs. If they come in through these other employers who are not signatory, they don't have access particular, or they choose not to because it costs a little bit of money to participate in these types of programs, which are benefits to all of us. So I would like to suggest that we think about how we can address that because we need to make sure there is apprenticeship training and people are being trained to come up into the trades with real skills, and they can become skilled professionals doing this work. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dave.
There. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman DeGolia. Yeah, I want to thank the committee for having a discussion on this. And I do believe you made a prudent decision to give labor, 30 days, I think is more than ample time. I think we should be able to take care of that within the 30 days. And I also look with the changes that Chairman DeGolia recommended and Director Pine. I think those will make it a lot easier conversation. So I think we're on the right path, and we do understand, we're not oblivious to the fact that there are small businesses that need a place in our society and in our industry. It's very common that the smaller contractors, whether they're minority owned or just plain small, start off that way, and we understand that. And we'd be foolish to think that we're gonna secure every project. We know that's not true, and I don't think our expectations are there. So hope that eases some of your concerns, Donna, that we are open to what you propose, what the small businesses, women-owned businesses, how we'll just call it non-huge union contractors. We know the reality of it, so we're okay. So we'll be more than happy to work with you, and I will relay all this information to Bart at the building trades, and then you guys can reach out to him and we'll set up the meeting and we'll get this hashed out sooner rather than later. I appreciate all your work on this effort. I know it's been a long process for this, and I respect all that work. It's just that, you don't want to do all that work to come out at the end and have something bog you down. So I think this is a prudent decision on your part, and look forward to working with you on this issue going forward, and happily in another 30 days, it'll be a done deal. So thank you so much.
Okay, we need to move on. We have 2 more items on the agenda. We have less than a half an hour. We took way too much time on that. So please, let's try to be efficient on the last 2. The next item is operational amendments to policy 14 regarding delegation of authority.
Dan, do you want to take that one or shall I?
Sean, I think you ought to just jump in there.
Okay, this one should be very straightforward, folks. Nellie, could I ask for the next slide, or Shayna, please? Thank you. Okay, so this one really is an administrative operational request for amendment. As you know, there is an existing policy 14 that was adopted when PCE first came into being, and then was amended a couple of years ago to include the chief financial officer. And now the amendments that we are seeking include the newly hired, somewhat within the last 6 months, chief operating officer. So we are recommending approval to the board of directors of operational amendments to policy 14 that would do essentially 4 things. 1, update the title of the policy just to clarify the scope, such that it is related to non-energy contracts and also financial authority. Updating the purpose section of the section 1.0 of the policy to include just cleaning up that this is for operational efficiency, and then adding chief operating officer to responsible parties and policy details, such that now the 3 executive level staff members, the CEO, COO, and CFO, will have contracting authority within existing policy established by the board and the JPA. And then the final is just removing a section 5.3 that existed for lower level authorities for a director of finance and administration, but PCE does not have that position and at this time does not have plans to create one. So that's really it. And if there are any questions, happy to take them.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? I don't see any questions. Is there any public comment on this? I don't see any public comment. Can I get a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the changes to policy 14, delegation of authority amendment per staff report.
Second, sorry, I was on mute.
Okay, great. Thanks to Carlos. Thanks, Donna. Can we do a roll call?
Oops. San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont. Belmont.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Burlingame,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Millbrae.
Aye.
San Bruno,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
and motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And then the next item on the agenda is amendment to policy 1, which is delegation of authority to the CEO regarding the legislative program.
Good morning, board members. Mark Hirschman, Director of Government Affairs, and Happy New Year. This is an amendment of Policy 1, as Chair DeGolia stated. The Policy 1 has two components. One sets forth the legislative and regulatory policies of the organization and priorities. This refers to the authority that the board has delegated to the CEO to make decisions related to the policy, the platform, in those instances where time is of the essence or otherwise appropriate for the CEO to weigh in. In 2016, this policy was established. It was amended in 2021. Last year, the board at its January board meeting adopted the policy platform, the second component of Policy 1, which reflected a change in staffing at Peninsula Clean Energy. We now have a director of regulatory matters and a director of government affairs. And so this is an update similar to the last. It's a housekeeping measure so that the delegation of authority reflects the detail with which the organization now finds itself with two lead staff people in policy areas.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from members of the board? Is there any public comment? Okay, I don't see any. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Anders.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
Portola Valley.
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion passes.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Jennifer.
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up on the earlier agenda item regarding the emeritus positions and the change there. I have reviewed the JPA. There is no need to go back to the constituent cities. It's covered by section 7.4, which requires the vote of the board members. So that's the trajectory forward, and I'll go ahead and put that section in the chat and happy to field any questions.
Great. So yeah, if staff could just revise the language based on the discussion today and propose an amendment, I think That would be fine. So the last item on the agenda is committee member reports. Does anyone have a report? Okay, I don't see any reports. Good to see all of you. We will see you at the board meeting this month. Have a good month.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks, bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Stay dry.